Hello, all, and welcome to Meet to Market. Excited to have everybody here this morning for our last webinar of this epically enormous series, like a year and a half of webinars. You are here at direct-to-consumer sales and marketing, social media, email, websites, and e-commerce, all of the juicy online marketing tactics one could ever want to know. My name's Olivia. I'm the program curator for the Meet to Market program, brought to you here by the IAC, the Intertribal Agriculture Council. And for those of you that are new to IAC, it is a national Native American-led nonprofit founded in 1987 to pursue and promote the conservation, development, and use of agricultural resources for the betterment of Native people. The IAC has, over the last 3 decades, become recognized as the most respected voice within the Indian community and government circles on agricultural policies and programs in Indian country. So we have had a sort of epic and long parade here of courses, and this program was started actually 4 years ago. It's a partnership between the IAC and the Southwest Grass-Fed Livestock Alliance. And we are an extensive online business training program for practices and tools of selling your meat directly. We're taught by a diverse team of educators and guest speakers and producers from across all nations. And we've been doing these webinars live for the last 16 months, I guess now. And all of our recordings are available for free on the IAC Mighty Networks platform. And everything is a la carte. You can always log in there and look for whatever you choose to be learning according to whatever topics interest you. And we're covering pretty much everything, all of the real basic business fundamentals, from entrepreneurialism through financing, accounting, finding land, processing your animal, marketing your animal, selling your animal. And as a follow-up to this, you will receive an email with some links to view the video, which will be up on Mighty Networks, and also some resources today we'll have for you. So we encourage you to just stay up to date with any other Meet to Market announcements via IAC's web newsletter, which you can sign up for on the web. And I'm going to drop some links here for all of these things that I'm talking about into the chat. There we go. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Hold your questions until we take a little break and ask for them, or you can drop them in the chat and I'll keep my eye on them and I'll funnel them to Mia, our educator, when the time is right. And please stay on mute unless you are speaking. And when you do speak, we'd love to see you. So when we do get to the Q&A section, just holler out and show us your beautiful face. And feel free to keep any comments going in the chat. And if you're looking for help for anything technical, you can talk to Elise, who is the Intertribal Agriculture Council here in our group. And with that, I'm going to introduce our educator, Mia Cole. She's here on behalf of the Good Meat Project today. And I'm going to let her tell you all about herself. And in the meantime, I'm going to drop her email and my email in the chat too, just so you have it ready to go. And yeah, take it away.
Hi, everybody. It's lovely to be here. I am very appreciative to Intertribal Agriculture Council for having me here today. As Olivia mentioned, my name is Mia. I'm here on behalf of with the Good Meat Project. I currently work in marketing. I've worked in marketing for a few years now. And while I do not currently work in the farming world with marketing, I have previously worked with the Good Meat Project, as well as other like small independent farms such as Hickory Nut Gap here in North Carolina, where I am based. And I'm very excited to be talking a little bit more today about email marketing and social media and website and SEO. Olivia, do you want me to go ahead and share my screen?
Yeah, let's go for it. I think we're good to go.
Perfect. All right. Have that screen shared, and let me get the slideshow up here. All right. Are you seeing my screen, Olivia?
Yep, looks good.
Great, perfect. All right. So, like I mentioned, like Olivia said, today we're talking about social media, email marketing, websites, and e-commerce, and how all of these things can kind of work together to create a marketing funnel in order to drive sales. Today's presentation is going to be separated into 4 different sections. We're first going to focus on social media and building a successful social media post and different tools and tactics you can use on your social media platform. Going to provide a couple tools and just helpful tips there. We're going to move on to talking about email marketing as the second part of our presentation. Similarly to the social media part, we're going to be talking about ways to build effective newsletters, how to build your email audience in case you need to build it or want to build it, as well as some helpful tips and tricks there as well. And then we're going to move on to the third part of the presentation where we discuss websites and e-commerce, talking a lot about different platforms, things to think about when choosing a website platform, when thinking about your point of sale, when thinking about the user experience on your website. And we'll kind of do a very brief mention to talk about SEO or search engine optimization as well. And then the fourth part will kind of be connecting all of these things together to see how you can cross-reference and cross-network between your different channels, your different marketing channels, whether it's email marketing, social media, or your website in order to help increase your brand awareness, but also get that ultimate goal of driving sales. So we're going to be beginning today with social media and asking the question of why social media is important. I feel like up until like a few years ago, social media was easily brushed off as like a teenager thing. I remember when social media kind of took off, and I myself was a teenager when it took off, and it was very much regarded as something that teenagers and the younger crowd were using. But nowadays, it's an incredibly effective tool for marketing and a relatively free and easy tool to use in order to communicate with consumers and communicate with potential customers and create online relationships with them. One way I like to think about social media is as a virtual vessel to communicate with your consumer and with your customer. I like to draw the analogy of a brick and mortar storefront. When you think of a brick and mortar storefront, that's going to have the business's branding on the outside, right? It's going to have branding on the inside. There's going to be the products available inside, as well as someone working behind the counter, whether it's the owner or an employee. And whenever someone walks into that storefront as a customer, whether they are browsing or whether they are planning to purchase, the person behind the counter is communicating with them. They're talking with them, they're asking questions, they're answering questions, making polite, short conversation maybe, and giving that customer or just person in the store browsing a good experience. And that person in the store is learning more about the brand while they're there. They're seeing the branding, they're seeing the products, they're talking to the employee, they're learning more about what this brand and this business is about. I like to think of social media as that brick and mortar storefront, but online. Social media is a great place to display your brand and to communicate with people online, whether or not they purchase from you immediately or not, to communicate your brand to them through your not only your branding and your online presence, but through your words and your actions and your voice online. So taking that and asking why is social media important again, we're thinking of social media as a direct message to your consumer. This is directed through the voice that you use on social media. It is directed through the branding that you use, your colors, your font maybe and graphics, your logo being visible, the idea that when someone visits your social media profile, whether it be Facebook or Instagram or something else, they know that that is your brand. They recognize that as your brand. We also like to think of social media as an extension of your brand identity. Very similarly here, it is a way of displaying your brand and your message and your mission on a very large scale to communicate with your customer base, to help educate your followers, but also increase reach. And the goal would be to increase engagement as well. So that's kind of like the backbone, the like background information of why, social media is important as a brand and as a business. Before we jump into kind of building a successful social media post and getting into the weeds with it, I do want to go over a couple of key vocabulary terms that you might be familiar with, but doesn't hurt to go back over them. And if you're not, it'd be helpful to know because I might be using them a bit in today's presentation. We're going to start off with content here on the left. Content is described as the graphics or images used for a social media post or within a newsletter as well. These are the like static images or videos that you use that accompany a post. When you think about your own scrolling habits, if you're on social media at all, when you scroll, you tend to kind of do an endless scroll, and you'll stop on a post when you see an appealing graphic. So that content is like a very important part of a post. That is usually what hooks people in first, and it gets them to stop. And then you have the copy up here, which is the writing used to accompany a graphic. It complements the graphic. It's essentially the caption of the post. You might think of it more as the caption, if that helps you. But it's also called the copy. And so that's going to be the writing that accompanies a post. To elaborate any further, we're going to get into best practices with copy here in just a moment, but just for now, that's what it's called. And then we have what might be one of the most important key vocab terms here, which is a call to action, or a CTA. This is a very popular marketing term. If it sounds very marketing, it's because it is, but it's also important to know about. The call to action consists of words or phrases that encourage an immediate response or sale of a product. So this is something that is giving the reader, the consumer, whomever is seeing the CTA, a direct action to do something. Here in Tokabe's Instagram post, we see the CTA heads the link in bio to shop, is telling the reader of the post to go to their link in their bio to find their online store and to shop. So a CTA is usually short, it is direct, and it gives an immediate and direct action. We're going to be talking a lot about CTAs today, so I wanted to kind of hone in on that for just a moment. Now that we know a bit of key vocab, I wanted to talk a moment about tips for building a successful social media post. First of all, it is important to always use your brand identity to tell stories. Like I previously mentioned, social media is a great means for displaying your brand, your messaging, your vision, your mission statement, as well as your products online. But you got to think of your products almost as an extension of your brand identity. Your brand identity really relays in your mission and your work, and then your products are a part of that. So brainstorming ways that you can display your brand online is crucial. Think about your mission, think about your vision, any slogans you might have. You can also think about important messages to your business, whether your business is very family oriented or your business is very oriented towards Indigenous storytelling or giving back to your community. What is your big mission with your business that you can relay through your brand identity online? Similarly, you can look and research what other similar brands are posting online. This is a great way to do a little bit of what is called market research, to see what other similar companies, similar businesses are posting and how they are relaying their messaging online. They obviously might have a different kind of brand identity than you. They have a different message, but see how they are going about doing that. Are they using a particular voice in the copy that they are posting on Instagram or Facebook? Are they using certain kinds of graphics? Are they posting more videos versus just stagnant graphics? Is it working for them? Is it not working for them? Kind of asking yourself these questions when looking at other similar brands can kind of help you decide what might be best for your brand when starting out. Another very important tip, these last three are really just more in the weeds, more practical tips. Making your visual content clear and eye-catching is crucial. As I mentioned on the previous slide, that content, that graphic is usually the first thing that catches someone's eye when they're scrolling. They stop when they see the picture or the video on their Facebook or their Instagram. They stop and then they look at the rest of the post, whether it be the copy and the CTA. Make sure that visual content is clear, it's not blurry, and make sure it is eye-catching. It's going to hook somebody in. Similarly, keeping copy short is also a good tip to use when creating captions on Instagram and Facebook. The size and the amount of copy you include can really depend business to business. Different people use different strategies and different strategies work for them. And this will be something we can look at in just a moment, so you can kind of determine which strategies work best for you online. But generally, keeping copy on the shorter side, I'd say no more than about 2 paragraphs. Just thinking of people's attention spans, you catch them with the content, you catch them with the graphic, they look at the copy, they're going to be more likely to read the copy if it's a little shorter. If it's really long, they might tune it out and just keep scrolling. Your CTA might get kind of buried among a long copy and people won't see it and it won't be effective. So keeping that copy short is also important. Emojis as well, that's something that's going to be up to your brand identity, right? The example I like to give here is I know the person who runs MTV's social media accounts. MTV obviously appeals to a very specific demographic, primarily teenagers and young adults. So of course, the person handling those social media accounts is using a lot of emojis. It's a very casual voice. It's a very casual brand. Their main mission is just advertising music and pop culture. So obviously you are going to be in a different position than MTV. You're not having that same demographic. You're going to have a different voice. So you may not need to use as many emojis as a brand or a business that's appealing to a younger audience for a different reason. Emojis are really up to you individually. Emojis are a great way to break up text. They are a great way to add a little bit of casual context to the copy or the caption of a post. They can add a little bit of informality, which isn't a bad thing. But obviously, if your business, your brand is maybe a little bit more formal, a little bit more reserved, do not feel pressured to use a plethora of emojis, if any. They're definitely not a requirement online. Hashtags are another great tool to use, especially on Instagram. They can help people find your posts based off of different hashtags. Knowing what hashtag will work for you is going to also rely on a little bit of research online, on Facebook or on Instagram, seeing what similar brands are using as their hashtags. And you can also search hashtags in the search bar on Instagram and on Facebook as well, and see how many posts are filed under a hashtag and what that engagement kind of looks like on those posts, and see if they might work or be relevant for you. So those are just a few tips on building a successful social media post. We're going to look at some pro tips now, just some final things to hone in on before we look at a couple of case studies. And the first one I want to kind of emphasize is that social media posts do not always have to be, and really should not always be, ads or promotional. If you think about yourself or even myself, I feel like I'm constantly being fed ads. I'm constantly being told to buy something online. It can get very tiring. And it can lead, if you are following a business that's constantly feels like they're trying to sell you something or push something on you, you might unfollow that business, right? Because it feels very gimmicky. You want to be working on building a relationship with your followers. Just like if you had someone walk into a brick and mortar store, you're not immediately going to be shoving product in their face and telling them to buy it. You're going to greet them and say hello and ask them how their day is and try to make a connection with them before, like, trying to drive a final sale. So remembering that all posts are not ads, social media is a great place to use promotional posts and to make promotional posts, and we'll see an example of one here in just a moment, but kind of intermingling those with posts that aren't quite as promotional as well, that kind of tell your story, show your brand identity, and make an effort to connect with your followers online is absolutely crucial. And then the second pro tip here, which you're gonna be seeing a lot of this throughout this presentation, is to always, always, always link to website content or your online store when you are mentioning it in a social media post to help improve your website's traffic. It doesn't have to be like a huge CTA telling someone to buy something, but if you mention something and there might be more information on your website, link to it in the post. It's never going to hurt to put a link in your post to your website so people can find you online off of social media. So I've talked a little bit about, not wanting to make all of your posts promotional, but also making posts that are going to be more engaging or show your brand identity or try to connect with followers online. And you might be thinking, I'm not quite sure how to do that. We're going to look at a couple of case studies, primarily look at some engaging social media posts, some more informative or educational posts, and a promotional post. So you can kind of look at these case studies, these examples of real businesses online, and see how they are interacting with followers based off their posts. These categories, I am loosely calling them because I have placed these posts into categories just to kind of help us all wrap our head around the different kind of posts you can be making online. You might find that these categories overlap. You can surely have a promotional post that has a strong CTA that is also very engaging to your audience. Or you can have a very educational post that has a good promotion at the end of it. You're going to see some examples of that here. They do overlap, but I did want to kind of show you concrete real world examples of what different posting styles can look like. Another thing you might notice is we're going to be looking at different brands and different businesses here. They all have different brand identities. Some of their missions are similar, but at the end of the day, they're all different businesses. They're all different brands. So you might find that their, voice, their style of talking, what they're including in their content is going to differ from post to post. So we're going to be starting off by looking at an engaging social media post, what I would refer to as an engaging social media post. This is Tokabi. They posted a short form video, a reel, I believe it was very short, like 5 seconds, on their Instagram profile that says our Indigenous community is ... And then they say more in the caption, which almost offers like a miniature call to action to go to the caption to see what the caption says. And then in the caption or in the copy of the post, it says, finish the sentence. Our Indigenous community is... They give a couple examples, and then they ask the question, how would you describe your Indigenous community? This is a wonderfully engaging post because it is asking followers a question and is making followers feel like they can have a voice a little bit with this business and with this brand. They can interact with it. Obviously, being online is not quite the same as being in person. People, customers, consumers don't feel quite as comfortable maybe sharing their voice online with a business than they would in person with them. So kind of opening that door and having a question available for people to answer is a great way to engage with your audience online. You can see an increase in comments, and that's also going to help your post have more visibility as well. The way those tricky Instagram and Facebook algorithms work is the more comments a post gets on it, the more it gets interacted with. Those algorithms are going to push it so it's a little more visible to other people. So getting more comments on a post is never a bad thing. Another thing that this post does is it obviously helps to display Tokabi's brand identity a little bit, right? Being very like Indigenous community focused. So it shows a little bit of their brand identity. It's a fun little post that allows people to engage and write their comments in the comments, write their answers in the comments, and help their audience kind of feel like there's more of a relationship between them and the consumer. It kind of bridges that gap. Looking at a couple of more informative or educational posts, I wanted to look at this one from Shepherdess Land and Livestock, where we have a very cute picture of an animal, and in the copy of the post, they mention how they're hauling out 400 head with their big boy truck this morning. This is a great example of using something that might seem mundane to you in your everyday life, something you might do regularly, going out to the pasture, seeing any animals, moving them around, just kind of everyday, quote unquote, in the office activity. But it's actually very interesting for consumers and your online audience to see if they're not seeing things like this every day. Certainly very interesting to me as someone with a 9-to-5 office job. Plus, it never ever hurts to have cute pictures of animals. Cute pictures of animals are almost always a win on social media. But what this post does, it's very casual. It's not necessarily very not meant to be very thought-provoking or very like reflective in an educational sense. It's simply showing a behind the scenes on the farm. That's what it's doing. And people like that. People like a behind the scenes glimpse. It makes them feel more a part of something. Plus, it also shows on the brand and the business side that that business is obviously involved with their animals, more one-on-one, more hands-on, and you can obviously see that the animals are well cared for, which is also very important to consumers. So that would be an example of a more behind the scenes style of an informative or educational post. But I also have another educational post to show you here from Thunder Valley CDC, which is where they're talking a little bit more about their food sovereignty initiative. So this is meant to be a little more educational, maybe a little more thought-provoking than the previous post. The actual post itself just has a short form reel or video on Instagram of some chickens. Again, animals are always a win to post online, and then they just talk very briefly about nurturing a regenerative food system through their food sovereignty work centers. But you might notice at the end of it, they have a short paragraph kind of educating about this and about giving back to their community, which is a big part of their brand and their business. So you get a little bit of that brand identity layered in there. But you see they finish off in that last paragraph with a small promotion. They talk about how they've lowered the price of their egg cartons to $3 a carton for their community. And then they finish off with a short little CTA. Interested in buying a carton or cartons in bulk, stop in at our Porcupine office and see our front desk staff today. So that would be a good example of including a little bit of a promotion with a little bit of a CTA intermixed in a post that isn't inherently promotional. It doesn't feel like someone's really pushing a product on you. They give the audience, they give their Instagram followers a tidbit of information, a bit of education first, so their followers feel like they've learned something. Followers love to feel like they have learned something or they have gained something from following you online. So that educational kind of post is a great way to do that with them. They feel like they've learned something. And now that they're learning more about Thunder Valley CDC's mission and their brand about giving back to their community. And now they're seeing that they've lowered the price of cartons of eggs for their community to $3 a carton. And for those that are in the community, they can take advantage of that. But even those that may not be able to take advantage of it, they're still seeing that and they're likely respecting it because it goes right back to Thunder Valley CDC's mission in this post where they've kind of educated about their food sovereignty initiative. So this is a little more of a thought-provoking educational post with a tad bit of a promotion at the end of it, but it doesn't feel gimmicky. It doesn't feel in your face. It feels very casual, almost like an aside. It's that secondary message of the post, the promotion. Now, if we want to look at a truly old school promotional post, what you would think of as a promotional post, we have this example from Widnor Farms. And I love this example of a promotional post. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. And that CTA, that call to action is front and center. Beef is back. You know exactly what the promotion is. As soon as you're scrolling, you see beef is back. You know that the beef has been restocked. It is back and it's available to purchase. You have that headline up again at the top of the copy, the caption. Our beef restock is live. They have a very short paragraph here, kind of talking about it. Then they also throw in that pork has also been restocked, which is great to know if maybe you weren't looking for beef at the moment. Maybe you were looking for pork, or maybe you just don't like beef that much as a consumer. You know, pork has also been restocked. So there's options for people not looking for beef. And then they link to their website so you can go purchase or learn more. So this is a great example of a promotional post. The CTA is clear. The post is straight to the point. It doesn't hound people to buy. And it links to the website or the online store for people to make that final sale, that purchase online. So these were just a couple of examples of some social media posts that you can find online that can be helpful for kind of portraying your brand identity, but also driving people to your website. We're going to see some more examples later on of how you can drive people to your website, how you can drive people to a newsletter through social media and vice versa. But for now, these were just a couple of case studies based in these categories that I mentioned just a moment ago. Before we move on to talking a little bit more about tools for success and content calendars, I wanted to make a quick distinction between reels and stories in case anyone here is not familiar with the difference between the two of them. So both are video format. You're likely familiar with that, but a reel is something that you're going to find on Instagram or Facebook. The example would be here on the left. This is something that is going to appear on your profile. It's going to have more of a long-standing time spent on your profile. It's more permanent. You can obviously delete it if you choose to, but it's going to have a more permanent lifespan on your profile. Reels also tend to be a little bit more of a longer form content, usually about 30 seconds to a minute, minute and a half. They can be longer, but you typically see them around 30 seconds to a minute. And they are a great way to promote things or to get people engaged or to educate your followers through something that isn't just a static post with a caption or copy. This is something that might be a little more engaging for people because it is a video. The text might be shorter, or maybe someone is talking in the video. And so it's easier for people to digest, for followers to listen to watch, versus having to read the copy or caption of a post. Reels are a great way to get a lot of information out there without having to have paragraphs on paragraphs of words. Compared to a story post, which is not going to appear on your profile. This is not going to be a more permanent video that you're seeing on someone's profile generally. These are going to be up. They have a lifespan of 24 hours. They stay up for 24 hours before disappearing. You can access stories. If you see here, I was on Widnor Farms Instagram profile here looking at a reel, and you see that their profile picture has that colorful ring around it. That means that they have stories that are actively available to view. You then click on their profile picture, and that's where you can view their stories, which are up for 24 hours. Stories are a great place to make small announcements, to make reminders about any kind of sales or events or anything happening in your community or with your brand. Or they're a great place to give little like sneak peeks or behind the scenes of things that you may just not want to be appearing on your profile for an extended period of time. Here's a good example from Widnor Farms. It's a little blurry because it was a video and I went to screenshot it and tried to get it so that the horse was in frame and looking at the camera. But just, saying good morning to their shiny ranch pony, or affectionately called a pony, as they say. He's actually a horse, as we see. He's kind of large for a pony, but that would be an example of a story post, something that's maybe a little more casual. It doesn't have to be quite as thought out as a reel. You can share between each other. You can hit the share button on a reel to share onto your story so more people can see it. Other people, your followers can also share your reels and your other posts between each other. They can share them. That's another great way to think about reels versus stories. If you want your post to be shareable between people, get that word of mouth out there, it would be best to post it on your profile. It'd be best to post a reel in this instance, because most of the time with stories, you can't share them. Sometimes you can. I think I had the option here to do so, but again, they are only up for 24 hours. So if you share it and the person you shared it to didn't look at it within 24 hours, they're not going to be able to see it. So it's not quite as accessible. Stories also feel a little bit more intimate as well because they're not as accessible. They're only up for 24 hours. It can feel more one-on-one. It can feel a little bit more organic and quote unquote real than a long form REEL reel that you are posting on your profile. That might be a little bit more edited or a little bit more clean cut than a story post would be. So that was my very long spiel on the difference between reels and stories that you can find on both Instagram and Facebook. I'm happy to answer any questions about that at the end of this presentation. Now that we've kind of made that distinguishment between those two things, I wanted to talk a little bit about tools for success that you can use online to help improve your presence on social media and improve your performance on social media. So the first would be Canva. Canva is a fabulous and primarily free design tool that you can use online. It's very user-friendly. It is very straightforward and easy to learn how to use to create designs for content. Whether for video or just for an image. We'll jump back really quick. adding something like this in a picture to get that CTA front and center is going to be very easy to do in Canva. Like I said, Canva is free. They do have premium subscription options, but they are primarily free, and they're pretty simple to use. If you've ever used Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or something like that, you'd probably get the hang of Canva pretty quickly. Unsplash is also a really great tool to use in a pinch if you need a stock photo for something. They also have a lot of free photos available to download. They are stock photos. They are royalty free. It's great to use in a pinch. Maybe you're sharing a recipe for a certain dish like ribs or something, but you don't have a picture of ribs, like a nice looking picture of ribs in your own personal photo library. You can go to Unsplash and find a nice photo of ribs if you want to share that. My only thing that I would warn against is, obviously, while stock photos are very appealing and they're very nice and it might be tempting to use a lot of them, I would stray away from using primarily stock photos with your content online, as well as in newsletters and on your website if you can, because stock photos they can be a little bit misleading at times, and sometimes they can be very easily recognizable as stock photos, and that itself can be a little misleading, can be a little more hurtful to your brand than you had intended it to be, but they are nice to use in a pinch if you need them for something small. Another great tool is Meta Business Suite. If you are primarily working on Facebook and or Instagram, Meta Business Suite is your one-stop shop for pretty much everything between those two social media platforms. It has an in-house post scheduler that allows you to upload your content, write your copy, and then schedule your post to be published at a later date, both on Instagram and Facebook. It has great analytics tracking for you to track analytics and see what is working and what isn't working for your social media profiles. It has paid ad options if you wanted to do a paid promotion on social media. Basically just a lot of really great things. You can respond to comments and messages from both Instagram and Facebook and Meta Business Suite. So it's a one-stop shop. It's really great to use. You got to really dig in there to learn how to use it a little bit more, but it's really not that difficult to use once you get the hang of it. And if you're primarily working on Facebook and or Instagram, that is really going to be probably the most helpful tool for you. Later is going to be a third-party tool that allows you to schedule on other social media platforms. So if you're using other platforms like X, formerly known as Twitter, or LinkedIn, or maybe even TikTok, Later is going to be a good place to schedule out those posts to publish at a later date. Later also does provide its own analytics as well, if you wanted to see more analytics come in there. But if you're primarily working on Facebook, if you're primarily working on Instagram, you really don't have to worry about Later. I just wanted to throw it out there in case anyone here is on any other platforms that they might need to schedule on. Later does have free options. However, they're pretty limited. So it would be an additional cost to be able to schedule as much or as little as you wanted. And then finally, a content calendar is incredibly helpful when planning out content for the future. I think it goes without saying that the most time-consuming part of posting on social media is figuring out what the heck to post, figuring out what to post, figuring out when to post it. It can be very, very time-consuming and draining to kind of brainstorm ideas and know what to post and how to connect with people. And a content calendar kind of eases that stress a little bit. And we're going to move on to the next slide because we will be providing a content calendar to you in a follow-up email. And we're actually going to just leave the presentation momentarily. I'm going to hide my video panel. There we go. And we're going to pull up the content calendar here. So you will have access to this. You'll have a view-only copy of it. So there are instructions here on how to make a copy and save it as an Excel file or save it as a Google Sheets file for you to edit. And this is a really, really helpful tool in kind of brainstorming and thinking of posts for the next month, for the next quarter, for the next few months, or just if you have a random idea that it may not even apply until October, you can jot it down in here so you don't forget when that time does come around. So there's a couple of columns here. We obviously have it organized by month for you. But the first column is the date, so you can plan when you would want that post to be published. And any additional notes, this is a great place to brainstorm ideas. For instance, today is actually Earth Day, I believe. So in case you wanted to post an Earth Day post, I put that there. Might be relevant to your business. It might not be, but if it is, it's there for you to remember. It's on April 22nd. And it's going to be more of an Earth Day post. And then I have made columns for Instagram, Facebook, and X. You can use all of them if you want. You don't have to use any of them if you don't want. If you're primarily on Facebook, you can delete these 2 columns and just use the Facebook columns. But I did want to provide a little bit of variety just in case. And this is a great place to add your copy. Just go ahead and pre-write your copy. This is especially helpful if you do use Twitter or X, because they do have a stricter word limit or a stricter character limit. So you would have to shorten your copy. So this is a great place to keep track of that, as well as a column for you to put your hashtags that you might be using in that post. So you can see kind of what hashtags you have been using, if you need to be using different ones, etc. And as you scroll more to the right here, we have a place to track analytics, and we're going to get more into analytics in just a moment. But while I'm on the content calendar, I wanted to show you this. So analytics are a great thing to track to see what you are doing good, what you might need to improve upon, and tracking them on a monthly basis is definitely recommended, a 30-day basis, just seeing what has been working on your different social media profiles and what hasn't, or what has become very stagnant. And I like them placed right here next to your posts that you publish throughout the month. So you can kind of do a direct comparison. Once you have all these columns filled out with numbers, you can look back and see, if your numbers were up, see what you were posting. If they were down, see what you were posting, and kind of cross compare that way. And this content calendar does have a second sheet on it. And this goes back to kind of those post categories that we were looking at with the case studies. So I've included a couple more with some examples or descriptions here for you to kind of get the juices flowing if you need a little help with that, or to kind of just help you use this as a jumping point for you to kind of think of other categories or posts that might work really well for your business. So we obviously talked about engaging and informative and promotional posts, but you can also think about ones that highlight your business or your organization, employee or volunteer highlights, or any certifications or awards you might have received, or any internal events that you might want to share, any kind of story or series. These can be really engaging posts for followers, where maybe you do like a 4-week series, you do a post a week, and those posts build on each other about something that might be interesting to your followers. If you're more of a family-owned business or family-operated, it doesn't hurt definitely to talk more about your family history in agriculture, or just your family history in general, or just the fact that you are family-owned is usually a really good point to mention online and to consumers. And then I mentioned seasonal here for seasonal or traditional holidays, changing of seasons, anything seasonal with your business. I know with farming is very seasonal. So kind of thinking about social media posts in that sense. I also included a list of what are kind of referred to as social media holidays. You think of those as kind of like National Cat Day or something like that, those kind of silly holidays you hear about, but that can see an increased amount of engagement on a social post if you post on that day. So they can be used strategically as long as they're kind of in line with your branding. Again, Earth Day would be a good example of that. If you're working in farming, or you're more focused on regenerative or sustainable farming or something like that, Earth Day would probably really relate back to your brand. So that is what we are looking at with the content calendar here. Like I said, you will get a link to this to access, to make a copy of and access and use just how you'd like to use it. It'll be yours entirely to use. And yeah. We're going to move on to talking a little bit about tracking analytics now that we looked at the content calendar, including that section for analytics. And we're first going to ask, why are analytics important? And the basis of that is basically analytics, or the statistics that you're looking at each month, are going to show you how people are interacting with your social media posts and with your profile. And this is going to give you a better understanding of not only how users or followers are interacting with your posts, but it's also going to kind of show you what is working and what is not working, or what might just need improvement because it's become very stagnant. So analytics are absolutely a crucial tool to be looking at least on a monthly basis, I would say, to see where that growth needs to happen for you online. But then you might be asking, what needs to be tracked? What am I looking at? There's four main things that I think are important to look at across Facebook and Instagram. You're going to see these are all similarly available to view on Twitter and TikTok and other social media apps as well. But these are going to be the four main hard hitters for Facebook and Instagram. The first is reach, or sometimes it's called impressions. And this is the statistic that shows you how many people have seen a post. They have simply seen it. It has crossed their feed. They have seen it. That is going to be the reach of a post. And then looking at page likes or follows, seeing on a month-to-month basis how many people are following you or have liked your page, seeing if that number has gone up, if it has gone down, if it hasn't really changed at all, and then thinking of ways that you can improve upon that or keep the momentum going. Then we have engagement and engagement rate. So engagement is going to describe people that are actually engaging with your post. They are commenting on it. They are liking it. They are sharing it. They are saving it. That is going to be engagement. And that's a really important part of social media, is having a good engagement with your audience. And engagement rate is going to describe the amount of people that have been the percentage of people that have been engaging with your post as it compares to your overall follower count. I have included the formula for calculating an engagement rate in the content calendar. It's a pretty simple formula. So that's a good way to calculate your engagement rate. Do not be discouraged if your engagement rate looks on the lower side. Engagement rates tend to stay across the board on the lower-ish side, single digits typically. If you think about your own social media habits, again, we can get into an endless mindset of scrolling or even doom scrolling, the infamous doom scrolling. And so the likelihood of engaging, you're not going to engage with every post that comes across your feed, right? The likelihood's a little lower, but you can always improve your engagement rate. And of course, the goal is to have a really good, consistent engagement rate with different people or with your different followers, so that you can work on building those relationships with them. And then looking at shares and saves of posts. So people can share posts on Facebook and on Instagram. And on Instagram, they can also save a post, which kind of saves it in a separate folder for them to access later. It typically, to that user, to that follower, means that post had a little bit more of a significance to them than just simply liking it. So it gave them something of extra value that they really appreciated. And so those are just kind of a subsection of engagement, but it does help to know, like, more separately, how many shares a post got and how many saves it got, or just overall how many shares and saves you saw throughout a month. So you can see like which posts are really, really resonating with people. So those are kind of what you're looking at tracking, but there are a couple different ways you can track your analytics. I previously mentioned this. Meta Business Suite is a great one-stop shop if you are using Facebook and Instagram. You're going to find pretty much everything you need there for analytics in Meta Business Suite. There are other places that you can track analytics. I mentioned later, most other apps have their own in-house tracking. You can do like you can look at your Instagram analytics completely separate of Meta Business Suite, but they don't offer significantly more insight than Meta Business Suite itself does. If you're on something like X or Twitter, or you're on TikTok, or you're on LinkedIn, you can find analytics within those platforms that'll tell you how people are interacting with your posts there as well. And then, of course, record them in your content calendar, like we kind of discussed just a moment ago, where you can record them on a monthly basis, compare them to the posts that you were making that month, and see whether or not those posts were working well for your business, and then pivoting or doing whatever you need to do to make sure that it works the next month or the next month, or to see some more traction gain based off of things that were successful. So that's kind of the basis of tracking analytics on social media, the importance of them, and how you can track them, and different things to track. That kind of wraps up the social media portion of this presentation. And we're going to move forward to talking a little bit more about newsletters and email marketing, and the importance of them, and communicating with your customer, and with extending your brand identity and reach to other people. So why are newsletters and email marketing important? Really what it boils down to, again, is they continue to help spread your brand's message, and it is continuing to build relationships with your audience, right? You're building relationships, and you're doing it in a way that might be even more one-on-one, or even more a little intimate feeling than it does on social media. Because while you are communicating with them on social media, and it can feel very one-on-one and personal, when you're communicating them with email marketing, you're sending them a message directly to their email inbox. So it feels even more personal. It can also be a good way to communicate with people in a more long form of way. You can make a newsletter a little bit longer than you can a social media post. You can include more content. You can include more graphics, more words, more links. It's a really great way to communicate with people. So looking at how to build an effective newsletter, number one, this is pretty much my number one across the board, brand messaging. Make sure that your brand messaging is consistent between your social media, between your newsletter, between your website. Your branding colors are there, your branding font is there, your logo is there, your voice is there, your mission is kind of intertwined in the messages that you're giving in your newsletter. Again, just like with social media, when someone opens a newsletter or an email communication from you, they should be able to immediately recognize your brand. They should know that that's you. And then determining a lead message for your email and a secondary message if you wish to have one. So a lead message is going to be that above the fold message. That's going to be the headline of the newsletter. It's going to be in the subject line. This is what is going to draw people in to open your email and read it. Generally, I would not advise making every single email's lead message a sale or promotion. Similarly to social media, people just get overwhelmed with being sold things online. I can't tell you the amount of promotional emails that I get in my inbox every day from various companies that get deleted without me ever opening them, because I have no desire to buy what they are trying to sell me at the moment. So leading with a message that is not promotional, something that is going to make your newsletter subscribers feel like they are being offered something valuable, is going to allow them more of a chance to open it and read through the email. This is going to be something, again, something educational, something that might be like, be the first to know about this, or be the first to sign up for, be the first to pre-order even, kind of making them feel like they're receiving exclusive content and exclusive opportunities is really great for a newsletter or email audience. And then your secondary messaging can be promotional, right? So that above the fold message, that headline with the graphic and maybe a short paragraph isn't going to be selling them anything, but just below that you'll have, oh, and by the way, our pork's on sale, or oh, and by the way, we've, restocked this. That doesn't go to say that you can never do a lead message that isn't promotional. Just don't make all of the email lead messages promotional. The third point here to building an effective newsletter would be cross-referencing. Again, making sure you are linking to your website and you are linking to your social media in your newsletter. So anytime you mention anything on your website, link it. Have your social media profiles linked in the footer of the newsletter. A lot of newsletter building websites and platforms allow you to very easily make a template or an email that includes a footer that links out to your social media very easily. So make sure that you're always cross-referencing and finding a reason to reference your social media and reference your website in your newsletter as well. If you post blog posts on your website, bring those into your newsletter. Tease them in your newsletter and then link out to the actual blog post on your website where people can read more. Or do something similar with social media posts. Maybe you posted a social media post that performed pretty well. It was educational. People got a lot of value from it. Reference it in your newsletter and link out to the social media post so people can find it. So cross-referencing is absolutely crucial to kind of drive people to your website and to your social media. We'll get a little bit more into that towards the end of this presentation, but did want that on the front of your mind. And then you might be asking about the frequency of newsletters. How often should you be sending newsletters? You don't want to spam people for sure. This is going to depend on your manpower and what you're able to do in terms of just time commitment. I would say at minimum, once a month just to stay in contact with your email followers or your email subscribers, so that they don't kind of feel abandoned, or they just don't see an email from you for 3 months and then suddenly you're in their inbox again. It can feel kind of spotty. So once a month is usually a good minimum for contacting people, but I also wouldn't really send email communications more than 2 times a month, depending on how long your newsletters are. Because it can feel kind of spammy to email subscribers. If they are seeing way too much of one company or brand in their inbox, it might feel a little too much. So I say once a month is usually a good goal to have there. But again, going to completely depend on your business. You can also track email analytics. Email platforms like MailChimp or Constant Contact that allow you to build your email and build your email audience and send emails have in-house analytic tracking for your newsletters, so you can look at those statistics coming and from your newsletters. A couple key things that you can look at would be first, your open rate. Your open rate is going to be the percentage and number of people that opened your email as it compares to your overall audience, your email audience list. So seeing your open rate, and then also your click rate, which is essentially the engagement rate of your email. So seeing of the people that opened your email, how many of them clicked around in it and clicked on links. And a lot of these platforms will also be really great to show you what links were clicked and how many times they were clicked. So you can really get into the weeds with seeing which links in your email marketing were the most popular and saw the most clicks. So that would be, those are two great ways to look at how people are interacting with your emails. Now you might be thinking, these are all great tips. I don't have an email audience, or I have a very small email audience. How can I build my email audience? So first of all, whenever you work with an email platform like MailChimp or Constant Contact, they have a great way to build an email sign-up form where you can essentially create a page where people can input their email. It'll automatically sign them up to be a part of your email audience. And this form is available via a link that you can share anywhere. You can share that link on your social media. You can put it in the bio link of your Instagram. You can share it in posts. You can also embed newsletter sign-up forms on your website. In the footer of your website, you can embed them on your Contact Us page, on your homepage, so people can easily sign up for newsletters. We'll look at that, more examples of those in a moment. And also at checkout, if you have an online store, when you think about how people are checking out online, they obviously insert their email. They give you their email for communication about their order and for shipping communications. And you can add an opt-in checkbox just under the email field that has a checkbox that says, I opt in to receiving promotional emails from so-and-so business, and people can check that and it'll automatically sign them up for receiving email communication from you. Another thing I don't have on this slide is just the good old-fashioned way. If you are doing any kind of vending or selling in person at markets, or you have a storefront, you can always just collect them on a piece of paper that says newsletter, subscribe to our newsletter, and have them write down their email, and you can add them in that way as well. So there's a plethora of ways you can work on building your email audience. Okay, we're going to direct the conversation a little bit away from email and talk about e-commerce and websites as well, and how we should begin thinking about e-commerce. First of all, I do think it's important to think of your website and e-commerce again as an extension of social media and newsletter marketing, right? You want your branding to be consistent. You want your voice to be consistent. You want people, when they visit your website, to recognize your website as your brand. So that is, of course, why I have branding is important as our number one thing to consider with your website. Another very important thing, though, is that websites generally rely very heavily on promotion. This is websites and online stores. You can give as many people a referral link as you want that'll take them directly to your website, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to reach as many people as you can reach if you actually promote your website on social media or through email marketing. So this is why we kind of started today's discussion, today's presentation, talking about social media, talking about email marketing, because e-commerce and websites are going to really rely on newsletters, email marketing, and social media marketing as a means to survive and be seen and see traction and visitors and users and really get that ultimate sale at the end of the funnel. It's also important to understand different website hosting platforms as well. I am most familiar with WordPress, but there's a plethora of website hosts out there. WordPress, Squarespace, Wix are just a couple that come to my mind off the top of my head. If you do not currently have a website provider, but you might have a point of sale system, thinking about which website providers will integrate fully with my point of sale system and work easiest for me. So when thinking of those different platforms in regards to your POS, making sure they fully integrate is crucial because you want checkout to be easy for customers. You don't want checkout to be difficult to understand. You don't want it to have to open in a separate window because your point of sale doesn't integrate with your website host or provider. And then it opens in a separate window, and maybe your customer gets a little sketched out by that because now they've been taken off of your actual like main website. So making sure that it fully integrates, that checkout is easy. We want to get users and customers on your website from point A to point B fairly quickly and seamlessly, from finding your website, getting on your homepage, and to check out fairly quickly and easily. Again, just like you would in a brick and mortar store, you want to make that checkout, that shopping experience for them very seamless and very pleasant. We want to recreate that on a website as well. You also want to make sure, if your point of sale doesn't already automatically include like shipping and labeling features for you with shipping, if you're using another third-party website or application for shipping and labeling, that it does integrate into this like overall scheme of things, just to make it easier on you and you're not having to use something third-party completely separate that doesn't integrate with your POS or website. That's going to make it difficult for you to package things. So those are just a couple of things to consider as you begin to start thinking about e-commerce and begin to start thinking about websites. One thing I want to talk a little bit about as we finish up our website conversation here is SEO, or search engine optimization. This is an entire beast in itself. So I know we've discussed a lot up to this point, and we're going to talk about SEO a bit here. And this might seem a little overwhelming. So do not worry about having to be a master at any of this, especially SEO. But this is something that it is good to have on your mind. And quite frankly, knowing things about SEO and knowing how search engine optimization works gives you an advantage in the field. It gives you an advantage as a business because not a lot of people are as familiar with SEO. So search engine optimization is ultimately the process of improving your website to increase its visibility and search results on Google, on Microsoft Bing, on any other major search sites. I'm, for the sake of time and breadth, just going to refer to Google because that is obviously the most popular search engine and most people use it. So this SEO is essentially what allows your website to get more visibility in Google search results. If someone is Googling something that you might offer, your website has more of a chance to show up for them. So obviously this is absolutely it's crucial to know how SEO works and to figure out how to implement it on your website to help increase your visibility in these search results. What SEO is essentially keywords. When you think about your own searching habits and how you search for something online, you're really just entering a couple of words. You're not really using a complete sentence typically. You're just entering a few words that are going to get you from point A to point B. If I'm looking to vacation in Destin, Florida, I might say Destin, Florida vacation rental. That's how I'm going to search. And then I'm going to get search results based off of that. So how SEO works is doing a little bit of keyword research to see how people are searching for your product and your offerings, what kind of words they're using, how they're spelling it, how they're phrased. Seeing which of these keywords have a good amount of search volume or people that are searching for them over a given period of time, and then implementing these keywords on the primary pages of your website, putting them on your home page, primarily as titles on your homepage, those H1 titles. Putting them on your main pages, your offering pages with your products, things of that nature. And what that does is when people use those search terms, Google is able to easily crawl or search your website for those keywords and push your website more towards the top of those search results for Google. So that is essentially the basis of how SEO works. Now, I will say SEO is a marathon. It is not a race. It is something that does require continual work and edits and checks to make sure the keywords that are on your website are still being searched pretty regularly. But just implementing a little bit of it and kind of dipping your toes in it can still give you a huge advantage. Just as a business. Real quick, looking at, you might be asking like, well, how do I research keywords? Like, how do I look these up to know like what people are using? I'm going to recommend using Google Trends. This is a free tool. And it's a great tool. It's a great free tool to use to look at keyword research. And you will get the PDF to these slides, and I have some live linking happening, like this is live linked here. But you can go to Google Trends and you can insert a search term. And you can filter it by location. I had grass-fed beef filtered by United States because that is where like the majority of revenue might be coming from, within the US here. I only had it set to the past day, but I would really suggest setting the time frame to like 90 days or even like a full year to kind of see how a term is searched for a long period of time. That'll show you if it's consistently being searched, right? And you can also change the kind of search. Web search is generally where you want it at and just keep it at all categories. And then you can see kind of, this is just a day's worth of data, but you can see kind of the amount of people searching or using grass-fed beef to search on Google. And this like 100 mark is telling you the maximum amount of people throughout the day that were searching for it. So it doesn't necessarily mean 100 people. It's like interest over time. It's that maximum amount of people during the day were searching. But you can see a lot of spikes, and that's what you want to look for, are these spikes in interest of people using the search term to search. And you can compare it to other search terms. I know some people spell grass-fed beef or grass-fed as one word. You could compare it to grass-fed as one word and then beef and see how that compares to it, and see which one might be better for you. So just think about like how people might be searching for your products or for your offerings, what kind of keywords they might be using. They're likely keywords that are already pretty popular in the industry, and then typing them into Google Trends, seeing how people are using them, seeing if they're popular or not, and then implementing them on your website. Especially on your homepage and those H1 titles, which are just essentially the title fonts on your homepage of your website, the big bold fonts. So these can be implemented. Another really great way to implement keywords is through blog posts as well. It really helps SEO if you're adding more content to your website that includes keywords. So if you're already adding blogs to your website or that's something you're wanting to do, definitely consider throwing in some keywords there that'll help with SEO as well. And of course, it never hurts to have a good amount of blogs, because the more content you have on your website, the more chances you have to link to your website from social media and from your newsletter. Which takes us to the journey and talking about how all of these things kind of work together. We've talked about social media, we've talked about newsletters and email marketing, and we've talked about websites and a little bit about SEO, but how do all of these things work together to create that marketing funnel to ultimately drive sales? We've mentioned it, I mentioned it a little bit throughout the presentation, but I wanted to leave you off with some concrete examples and suggestions of ways to network your different marketing channels together to drive sales and increase brand awareness and engagement across these platforms, as well as show you some examples of ways to do this, some real world examples. So we're going to start off by looking at social media and how you can kind of drive people from social media to also subscribe to your newsletter and also to visit your website, which would be the two main goals of that, like cross networking between social media and other channels. So in order to encourage followers to subscribe to your newsletter, it's important to include links to your newsletter on your social media, either in the link in your bio on Instagram or in actual links of posts on Facebook, and really position your newsletter as something that is a little more exclusive. It's a little more like, it's closer, it's a little more intimate, like we're more like friends, or sharing more insider, be the first to know kind of information, something that your social media followers might feel like they're receiving some of on social media, but if they really enjoy your brand, they want to be more a part of it, they will join you over with your newsletter email audience. So positioning your email as being the first to know about sales promotions, learning more about new products, maybe even early access to things, knowing more about events, behind the scenes, things like that, positioning it like that on social media, and then linking out to it. Similarly, on your website or with driving customers to your website from social media, you want to be linking to your website from your social media as frequently as you can. Use blog posts. If you mention an event happening and you have information about that event on your website, link to it from your social media. Any kind of sales or restocks or just additional information about things, linking to them from your social media is really going to help drive people to your website. Now, a couple of examples of this. Oh, yep. Always include a link and mentioning your website or newsletter on social media. Always include a link. If anything is driven home with you today, I hope that is it. But a couple examples of this in action. Looking here on the left, I have a screenshot of Alder Spring Ranch's like Instagram bio here. And as you can see, they have kind of a static link here in their Instagram bio. I wanted to point this out because one downside to Instagram, if you do use it, is Instagram does not allow for live linking in their posts. So if you went to make an Instagram post and you put a link in it, it's not going to hyperlink it. So people are not going to be able to click on it. They're not going to be able to highlight it easy. And really, like at the end of the day, if people aren't going to try to highlight it and visit the website if it's not already hyperlinked. Why? Because it's an extra couple of steps they have to take to visit the link. And we want to easily give them a link they can click on. So to kind of shorten the amount of steps it takes for someone to visit your website or subscribe to your email audience or see anything that you are linking to on Instagram, it is great to include that link in your bio because you can live link there. I believe Instagram now allows for you to upload or add more than one link here. But another great tool that you can use is something called Linktree, Linktree. And this is a primarily free tool that allows you to essentially nest a bunch of links on one overall linked landing page, like a Linktree landing page that you can put that link in your bio here. And when people click on it, they're taken to kind of this page that has a bunch of buttons of links that you have included that link to your website, your newsletter sign up, any events happening or blog posts you mentioned on Instagram, anything like that. So people can easily access them from the post since you can't live link on Instagram. So all that to say, Alder Spring Ranch has one here. And when you click on it, they have two links, one that links out to their different social media channels and the other one links to their newsletter subscriber sign up form. So having that there is very, very helpful for getting newsletter subscribers, having it front and center. We also have an example here from Widnor Farms on their Facebook where you can live link on post. You can live link on post on Facebook where they're advertising an event happening, an annual like farm to table dinner event, and they have linked to the event information for people to learn more or reserve a table for this event. So those are a couple examples of cross-referencing social media with your newsletter, sending people from social media to subscribe to your newsletter and to visit your website. Now let's look at your newsletter and how we can drive people from your newsletter to also follow you on social media and find your social media posts, as well as drive them to your website to visit your website. So when driving subscribers to social media, it always helps to have social media links in the footer of your newsletter. They're always there. They're always stagnant. People can find and easily click on your social media whenever they open a newsletter of yours. Positioning your social media as a way to regularly stay connected and find additional information. Social media as a way to have almost everyday contact with you as a business versus once a month with a newsletter. While the newsletter subscribers might be getting more exclusive or more like what feels like more of an intimate, friendly relationship, the social media followers, well, they're getting some of that. They're getting more frequent communication from you. So really positioning it that way, including any important social media posts in your newsletter and linking out to them. is a great way to drive your newsletter subscribers to your social media. Driving newsletter subscribers to your website, again, including links. Include links to additional information. If you mention a blog in your newsletter, include a link to that blog. If you mention a newsletter, you can always link to like your About Us page on your website and have a portion of your newsletter that says, hey, like, maybe if you're a new subscriber, like meet the team, like learn more about us and link to your About Us page. There's a plethora of ways that you can kind of incorporate your website with your with linking it to your newsletter. Including appealing CTAs in your newsletters helps as well. And we're going to see an example of that here. So here is Hickory Nut Gap driving some people to their website. They have their primary message of it starts at the farm, the whole story. And as you can see pretty front and center, because this is hyperlinked, they talk about hosting the Whole Foods market team on their farm and kind of what they did that day. And then they link to a blog post on their website, and they have an attractive button here that kind of pops out at the eye. The CTA is short, the CTA is direct. It says read the article, and the red box is not there in the email. I used the red box to highlight it for you here. But people can then click on the button to link out to the blog post on Hickory Nut Gap's website and read more about the Whole Foods market team visiting. This was the primary message of the newsletter. It was above the fold. It was right here at the top, and a pretty direct CTA to learn more about this. Now, I just took a screenshot of this newsletter, but just below the fold, so below the screenshot, is where they included promotional material. It's where they talked about some restocks at their farm store. It's where they talked about some upcoming products and still linked to their website. And in the footer of their email, they have links to their social media as well. So that's just kind of an example of how you can take a blog post or something on your website and kind of summarize it or include a sneak peek to it in your newsletter. Another little helpful hint or tip that I will give about linking to your website is when you include graphics in a newsletter, like a picture here or a logo, you can add links to those graphics, link them to your homepage of your website. That way, if sometimes you might be tempted to click on a graphic, right? Because it's kind of front and center. And if someone does, they will be sent to your website, it will link to your website. So that would be another kind of tip I have for you there. All right, finally, we're going to look at how we can drive people from your website to your social media and how we can encourage users to subscribe to your newsletter from your website. So when driving users to social media, this all might sound a little repetitive because we are kind of following similar processes with this. But on your website, it's always helpful to include social media links in the footer of your website because if it's in the footer of your website, it's going to be on every single page of your website. But also include social media links on other pages. Include them on the Contact Us page. Include them maybe even on the home page. A lot of websites, you can also embed your Instagram feed. If you use Instagram, like 3 to 5 of your most recent posts will show up on your page wherever you embed them on your website. And that gives people a more visual representation of what and how you're posting online. In order to encourage users to subscribe to your newsletter with your website, again, it's including newsletter forms on your website. Now, a lot of both newsletter building sites and platforms, as well as website hosts and platforms, make it really easy to integrate embedded newsletter sign-up forms on websites. You can embed them in the footer of your website. You can embed one on your homepage. You can embed one on your Contact Us or your About Us page. You can include opt-ins at checkout, and you can also create pop-up forms if you wanted to on your homepage that pop up to prompt people to sign up to your newsletter. So kind of looking at both of these things in action on a website, looking at Widnor Farms here, this is the bottom of their homepage where they have a couple of CTAs for joining their email and following them on Instagram. So we have the first here, again, the red boxes that's me pointing them out to you. We have join the Friends of the Farm email list, which is kind of that main call to action. Join our email list. They're calling it Friends of the Farm, which makes it feel a little bit more exclusive. You have first, last name, and email fields for people to fill out to join the email list. And then they also have a little secondary headline of be the first to know about events, restocking, and more. So then the people, the users on the website are kind of learning more about what they might be getting from subscribing to this newsletter list. Because while like being subscribed to a newsletter is more intimate and feeling of building a relationship with the brand, it's also because of that, people tend to be a little bit more guarded in giving their email out, right? So kind of telling them what they're going to get out of it is really important. And then just below that, they have the call to action, follow our adventures at Widnor Farms, with a small embedded links to their most recent Instagram posts. So that way users can get a little bit more of a visual feel of what they are posting on Instagram and see kind of their branding. And visually, it might be just something that leads them to Instagram a little easier than it would than just seeing some buttons. But they also in their footer here have links to all of their social media that you can find easily. So that would be an example of how we are encouraging people to subscribe to our email list, encouraging people to follow us online from our websites. And that brings us to our conclusion. And I am hoping I didn't go too terribly over today, as I know this was a lot of information, but just a brief conclusion, because we did talk about quite a bit. We talked about social media and creating effective social media posts, how to track analytics, and the importance of how to use a content calendar and how you can use one. And you will be receiving a link to that content calendar within the next day, I believe. We also talked about email marketing and newsletters. Again, the importance of it, how you can build relationships with it, how you can effectively build a newsletter. And we talked a little bit about important analytics to track with newsletters as well. We also talked about best practices and ways to think of e-commerce and websites, and we dipped our toes a little bit into SEO, which I'm happy to answer any questions about. And then finally, we kind of took it all and we looked at social media, we looked at email marketing, we looked at e-commerce and websites, and we looked at how they kind of all work together to create this funnel to help drive sales. But one thing I would like to leave you with, kind of my final reminder today, is while sales bring in revenue, and revenue is obviously the ultimate goal. We all need money to survive. Do not discredit people engaging with your post. Do not discredit people interacting with your website. Do not discredit visitors that are just popping onto your website, or visitors that are popping onto your social media profiles, or just opening your emails without making any clicks. Do not discredit any of that. Just like you would in a brick and mortar store, going back all the way to that analogy at the beginning of this presentation. If someone walks into your store and they don't make an immediate purchase, we're not going to treat that person differently, right? Because we know we have tried to form a good relationship with them. We have tried our best to display our business and our branding to them in a way that is going to have them come back, right? So do not discredit these online relationships. While they may not feel as personal because you aren't meeting these people or you don't know them personally, do not discredit people clicking around on your website or visiting your Instagram or Facebook profile without making an immediate purchase, because as long as you're forging that relationship, that end goal of the purchase is always a little closer in sight. So that concludes my presentation today. I am going to pass the torch back over to Olivia for the Q&A portion of today's webinar.
Thank you, Mia. So awesome. So much information that you actually make it sound sort of fun and engaging, which is hard for me. So I so appreciate everything that you brought to the table here. And I'd love to just open the floor to folks here to dive into some of the nuts and bolts with Mia while she's here, if you're interested in it. Our friend Briana, who is our producer speaker, had last minute farm situations, which we all understand. So unfortunately, she won't be able to join us today, sort of last minute, but Mia gave us plenty to chew on and without her even here. But I'd love to see if anybody wants to talk about anything in terms of Mia's presentation. You can just go ahead and unmute yourself and put yourself on video if you feel like it and ask us questions. All right, Lena asks, can you present this to tribes if they want social media training? Oh, great question. Definitely be in touch with us. We'd love to figure that out for sure. And in the meantime, this recording will be up on the Meet to Market Mighty Network site, and I'm going to drop it back in the chat. So at the very least, they'll be able to access this. And then if you're interested in developing a specific training with a specific tribal entity, then just get in touch with us. So here's Mighty Networks. Again, that's free, in perpetuity, login. All of the handouts that Mia referenced will also be there and ready for download as well. And then I'm going to drop our emails back in the chat again too, for those of you that joined a little bit later. But yeah, I think we'd love to have a conversation about anyone that might be interested in more of this training. Other questions? I'm also going to drop our survey in here, which we would really love your feedback. It's super helpful in terms of shaping future programming for IAC to get your real, raw, and honest opinion about how this went down. So it's the 30-second survey. I would love to hear all of your thoughts. So sort of on that same tip of, whether we can do presentation to tribes about our content, for those of you that are IAC technical assistance providers, be in touch if you'd like to see some of our Meet to Market content appear at some of your regional summits. It's something that we're not exactly sure yet about, but we've done it in the past, and we're hoping that we may be able to help you curate some of the material for your live and in-person gatherings and use all of these assets and thought practitioners that we've gathered here for Meet to Market. So if that's something that you're interested in, please be in touch with me directly and let me know what that looks like for you. And just for our sort of capstone Meet to Market moment, we are actually going to be hosting 2 workshops in person this summer at the Carolina Meet Conference. That's July 30th and 31st in Boone, North Carolina. It's organized by NC Choices, which is a project of NC State's Center for Ecological Farming Systems. And we'll be featuring 2 of our workshops from Meet to Market with co-educators, and I'll be there, and we have some native producer speakers from the Southeastern region that will be speaking as well. And IAC will also have a booth presence as well. So I'm going to drop that in the chat as well. For any of you that are down there in the Southeast, we'd love to see you. Send your producers, send your colleagues, send your friends. And that's July 30th and 31st in Boone. And if nobody else has any other questions, that's pretty much a wrap on our live webinars. And I encourage you all to head over to Mighty Networks to revisit all of them. And Mia, I can't thank you enough for all of this super intense social media information.
It's definitely a lot of information, and I'm not shocked there aren't a lot of questions because it's a lot to digest for sure. But yeah, I really appreciate you having me here, and I really appreciate everyone who sat and listened to the very long presentation today. And if you do have any questions, any follow-ups that you think of after this, Olivia did drop my email in the chat, and you can always reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might think of later.
Cool, great. Thanks, everyone. And thanks for joining us.